Razer's DeathAdder line is immensely popular, and this, the newest V3 Hyperspeed, is one hell of a mouse. Perhaps due to its popularity, that's why Razer felt it prudent to charge you an extra £30 for a wireless dongle that unlocks all of the available features of this mouse. This bad boy can only do, at least out of the box anyway, 1000Hz polling, both wired and wirelessly. Unless you buy the optional extra hyper-polling wireless dongle, which then lets you use 8000Hz polling. Now I did ask Razer for the dongle, and in theory I will get it at some point, but it's been a couple of months now, and I've got to review this thing at some point, so we're rolling with what we've got, which means no 8000Hz support, which admittedly is what you end up with if you don't pony up the extra anyway. So what's the deal with the DeathAdder V3 Hyper-polling or Hyperspeed then? Well, this is one hell of a mouse. It weighs just 55 grams, making it a featherweight option, plus of course being wireless makes it remarkably free. Shape-wise, this is a departure from the sort of standard or original DeathAdder shape, although it is fairly similar to the more recent models. It's a reasonably high arch, making it a pretty decent shape for either palm or claw gripping, with larger hands like mine being able to fingertip it if you prefer. This should suit more like small to medium hands, although if you are on the larger end like me, you might find it just a tiny bit too small. Plus the geometry, especially on the right hand side, makes it a little less than perfect for your ring and pinky fingers. I found it a touch uncomfortable personally, although I'm certain smaller hands than mine would be much happier with it. I should note that Razer has gone with a pretty smooth, almost soft touch finish to this, or sort of coating, which isn't ideal for gripping onto the mouse. Admittedly, the insanely lightweight mostly makes that a non-issue, but I definitely prefer the sort of subtly textured finish that Glorious offers on the Series 2 mouse that I reviewed recently, and the review of that in the cards above. The underside is where you'll find the large PTFE skates that cover basically the whole front and back sides of the mouse, along with an extra ring around the sensor's lens. Unsurprisingly, thanks to the skates and the incredibly light weight, this thing glides perfectly on a nice mouse mat. It's light and smooth, just exactly what you want. You'll also find the power button / DPI button here, and interestingly there's actually only one LED on here, sitting right at the front of the mouse between the left and right clicks and in front of the scroll wheel. That will change colour depending on your connection settings and the DPI state, which by default you get 5 modes for. Just below that LED is also where you find the USB-C ports, which of course can charge the internal battery that, at least at 1000Hz, should give you 100 hours of usage, or apparently 20 hours of usage at 8000Hz, but can also be used for wired operation. Sadly, even when wired, Synapse won't let you enable anything higher than 1000Hz polling, something that is kind of quite the contrast to the Glorious mouse that I reviewed recently, including the Model D2 Pro, which will also be linked in the cards above, which lets you split the wired and wireless polling. You do also have a slot in the bottom for the USB dongle if you want to be able to travel with the mouse. Sensor-wise, this is Razer's Focus X 26K optical sensor, which much like the Glorious mouse I've been talking about, seems to be a pretty close spec match to the PixArt PAW3395, so I would assume that's what they're using here. As expected, this tracks incredibly well, even with fast flicks on both low and high DPI, and to the eye anyway, feels really nice and smooth and pretty low latency. Actually, speaking of latency, the Gen 3 optical switches that are in here must have some serious magic sauce, because this thing has ridiculously low click latency. Testing with my open source latency testing tool, available at osrtt.com, link in the description, both wired and wireless modes offer really good results, at around 2.85 milliseconds for wireless and 2.5 milliseconds for wired. That puts it in the ballpark of the high polling rate options from the Glorious mouse that I've tested, which is mighty impressive. I honestly doubt that the 8000Hz polling would actually reduce this by all that much, with how low it is already. Maybe when I finally get that dongle, I'll revisit it and let you know. For actually gaming on it, it's a pretty good time. As I mentioned earlier, it's perhaps a tiny bit too small for my hands to be truly comfortable, but I was able to use it fine enough, and of course the distinct lack of weight makes it a really nice and easy thing to flick around and be pretty accurate with. It tracks really well, and it's certainly not a bottleneck to my experience, that would be my skill, and just the ridiculously low click latency is definitely nice. In short then, it's a pretty great time. The only other gripe that I have with it really is the included USB cable. It's a thick rubber affair that is surprisingly short and retains kinks from packaging so much that the included USB-C to A adapter that lets you put the tiny dongle on your desk rather than hidden away at the back of your PC is like, it's just not heavy enough so that it doesn't sit nice because the kinks just roll it over. The cable's also likely too short to use as the charging cable for the mouse too, which, at least depending on where your system is, which is kind of annoying. Of course, the most annoying thing is that this, a price premium gaming mouse, asks you to spend another £30 on a dongle that unlocks more features that the mouse is otherwise capable of. This mouse is listed for £100 on Razer's store, making it an incredibly premium choice, and yet they want even more? Not just even increasing the price to say £120 or so to cover the cost of swapping out the included dongle for the hyperpolling one. That just feels stingy to me. The mouse itself is great, and I'm sure having 8000Hz isn't bad either, but as you can tell, it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Anyway, if you're interested in the DeathAdder V3 Hyperspeed, I'll leave a link to it in the description below, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, both on the mouse itself and on the hyperpolling dongle being an optional extra. Let me know what you think in the comments. Of course, if you want to see more videos like this one, you can hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notification icon, and you can check out plenty of other videos both on the end cards on over there and the cards above, including the glorious mice that I reviewed recently. Otherwise, that's kind of it. If you want to check out the open source latency testing tool, like I said, that's linked in the description at osrtt.com. And yeah, otherwise, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you on the next video.